this is Jenna Burt, host of the Confessions of a Military Spouse podcast. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
How's it going, everybody?
Hey guys,
this is Keith
and Katie from Coffee with Keith and Katie on Public House Media.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
When you're done listening to this show, I hope you'll come check out our show, Coffee with Keith and Katie. A new episode comes out every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock.
Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Now I'm live from Austin, Texas for Nofilter Friday on Public House Media. And we're doing it with some fun folks. Oh, look, we have a balloon. I promised balloons. And I've got balloons. They work in the We've been sitting here. Oh, David, does it sound okay? Because my mic check earlier sounded okay, so, but I need your expert opinion. We'll see if it sounds okay. I even wore a real mic for this. I'm not just using headphones. Wow. Doing it for real. But I have a drink every week when I do the show, and most of the time it's tea or LaCroix. But this week it's actually rosé. We're painfully close to Mexico, and I'm known in Mexico as Mumu Rosé. It's my street name in Mexico. If you can believe it. So this week's show is about, since it's the 50th celebration, it's been going for a month because on October 17th of last year is when the news of Harvey Weinstein broke. So we're like a year and a week deep from the Me Too movement. Deep. We're deep. We're a year deep in the Me Too movement. So, not 52 weeks, but 50 is better than 52, I suppose. But you get a bye week for Christmas and New Year's, stuff like that. So this show is going to be about then and now, because as of now, according to Bloomberg, over 400 high-profile people have been caught up in the Me Too movement, and a lot of these people have either lost their jobs, and some of them were, like 40% have been replaced by women, which is kind of crazy. Like, it seems a lot more of a coordinated attack when you think about it that way than people. But they made a graph. It's like January, or like 2017, like January, like couple people, and then when Harvey Weinstein got accused in October, it like shoots up to almost like 70 plus people, and then November it got even worse, and it's like come back down. But that's a lot of 417 people were accused. 193 were either fired or lost their jobs from being accused, and another 122 have been put on leave indefinitely. So apparently they got jobs where they got to get smushed out. I did a show a while ago on Les Moonves, the guy that's been running CBS forever, and he got put on leave for a while, and then the story blew up, and they're like, you gotta go. We can't just do a leave, unfortunately. So, but the great thing about doing the show live like this is I was going to take questions about Me Too. Do we have questions, anybody? Yeah, we did. Like, we kind of already did our questioning earlier. One of the big questions people ask me is, like, why I ended up doing the show. And it was because Public House Media asked me to do a show before, like, when they were, like, setting the network up, like, before they gave birth to it, basically. And I was like, I don't really have anything to talk about. And then finally the news broke about Harvey, and everybody in town was like, oh my God, it's real, it's happening. And like, people actually, like, the public is shocked, because Hollywood wasn't shocked. They're like, yeah, we know this. He does that. That's why you can't, like, go hang out with him. because you don't know what you're going to get caught up in. You don't know where you're going to fall on that totem pole. So people in town knew, and then people started calling me and asking me about it. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's a thing. And then after like 2 or 3 weeks of people calling, I was like, okay, we need to consolidate all of these phone bills because you're clogging up my line here. Like, let's just pick a place and a time, and that way everybody can know. So that's how I started doing it. But Austin itself is a very important piece of the Me Too movement because before Me Too happened, the ladies of the Austin Film Community got together and ousted this guy that worked at Alamo Drafthouse. Do you know those people? Yeah? Well, do you have any inside information on it? Because that's what the show's about.
I don't honestly, most of what I know is what happened after the Fantastic last year.
Yeah.
So there's a guy who worked for the draft house, and he had been fired before because this is no, he'd been fired before because alcohol and he was brought back in.
Ooh.
One of the reasons why he was sexually harassed. It used to be like, so the draft house when I started was supposed to be a home for like creepy people or like social people who were interested in film.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things there that kind of pushed the envelope, and a lot of people, a lot of guys who were kind of creepy were allowed to stay around.
Oh, who's their hangout?
Yes, I found out that is like people were socially awkward and they were geeky and they didn't mean anything by it, but they would also like harass staff and harass the people who did lots of events. I know I used to, it's kind of like what we're describing with Hollywood. Like I used to do events, there are people that I knew to avoid. Like I knew to avoid hearing no's because like even when I did stuff online, I used to make clues. I knew that he was creepy, just as a grapevine. And there are a couple of guys there that everyone knew were creepy as a grapevine, but they never got banned. And people would talk to the police stuff, and people would talk to network and stuff, and they would just always still be there. So last year, the draft house started really getting policies about harassment, started enforcing it more, and so you don't see those guys around as much. But yeah, it's very much culture for the whole time that the draft house was Austin institution, like through the late 90s and 2000s, that there would be creepy there, and you would go to avoid them.
That's gnarly. Well, yeah, because like when the news broke about like Harry Knowles and like these ladies, it was more about like these ladies getting together and being like, he's gotta go. We've had enough. But yeah, like sometimes you just have those creepers that you know about, but like the people that are being creeped on are supposed to figure out how to avoid them, not just get rid of the root of the problem and be like, problem solved. Because you got creeper problems. Gross. But like after they got rid of him though, they successfully ousted him, were they like, yay, creeper, Harry Knowles creeper is gone, like, or were they just a business as usual?
I mean, they have been harassing. I think they seem sincere about changing things, but also, it's a very good institution. I think people who ran the draft house are sad to lose their friends.
Oh yeah. Totally. There was the improv community in LA had a similar problem where, and it was so weird to me because it was like my friend's like coach for his like improv team, and he got caught up where like more because there's like a all women's like improv like Facebook group, I guess you could say, and they're like this guy, and then like they match their stories up, and like lo and behold, it's like the same thing over and over and over again. And like they were getting ready to get rid of this dude anyway because he kind of sucks. So it worked out for the improv team. Like, yeah, he's got to go because he's a creeper. It's not from his mouth creative comedy at all. It's because we're really super good people. Not that they weren't, but they definitely like rode the wave. But there was like a major upset in like the improv community. It's like, yeah, like these people, like, these guys with like these certain like IO or Second City or, Upright Citizens Brigade, like all those places were like, did like a creeper cleanse basically, like after they got rid of the one guy, they combed, like went over the place with like a fine tooth comb, was like, creeper, maybe, Let's get rid of him. Like I think of only a few people like survived the culling of the LA Improv. But that was before all this started though too. But there's like all these rumblings, like stuff like that happened before Me Too like really took off. And it was kind of like, you know how like the patent office has like 7 people like apply for the same patent at all the same time? It was just time for it to happen. It was just time for the cleansing of the sexual predators. Nobody likes. I shared it. There's more people coming in now. Oh, Gary Sprouse came by. Bobby Schroeder and Austin's here. Why is my phone buzzing? Hush phone. Nobody wants to hear you right now. But yeah, that's why I wanted to do like the 50th celebration from the Austin Film Festival. I'm like, these ladies figured it out. They were ahead of the wave. And they did it. But the Alamo Draft House is like so special because it's like a chain. It's like super indie focused, and it's definitely like, I wouldn't say cool kids. That's not quite the crowd, but the different kids, the different kids all coming together. And you know what, phone? That's enough out of you. Nobody wants to hear you. Hush. I feel like whenever my phone rings, who is it? Like it's not what my phone's supposed to do. It's supposed to tell me people are calling. Thank you. You say no thank you to your phone. Really? I turn it off and it's still buzzing at me. I can't stand it. Anyway, okay, some more people coming in. Yay! I love it when people join in. So then we had like this onslaught of like, once Me Too took off because of these like surrounding events that finally pushed it over the edge. Then it was like a free-for-all. It's like if you had a bad date with somebody 15 years ago, they were under suspicion. One woman had a full press conference because she did a movie with Dustin Hoffman in 1982, and he told her that she had a nice ass. And she was like, I was abused. But then and then people were like, what? This is too crazy. This is like above and beyond like what it's supposed to be for. But I think now it's kind of starting to like even out. Now that Bill Cosby's went to jail, like Bill Cosby, Daddy Huxtable himself, is in jail for the things that he's done. And then I think Harvey Weinstein's on his way to jail. Like he's taking the long scenic route, but he's getting close to the cabin in the woods destination. Because last week I did the show on him, and he had one of the New York police like kind of screwed up, and they were like, okay, like to one of the people that is accusing him, like when you turn your phone into evidence, make sure you don't have nothing on it that nobody needs to see. Which isn't bad advice, but they're arguing that he tainted the entire evidence and like the whole thing, so they dropped her, because it's 3 ladies that are accusing him, and the one woman, they dropped the like malicious part of her like sexual conduct, so it went from like malicious sexual conduct to sexual misconduct, but they were able to get that part dropped because the police officer was like, don't have anything on your phone. And then they tried, the people, the prosecutor and the Harvey Weinstein's lawyers went to like the governing, like I don't want to say the governing body, but they're like the police like regulatory agency, and they're like, your police officer wasn't supposed to do this and blah 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 blah. And the police officer, I guess it's like their union rep or something, was like, you can do that. People have sensitive information on their phone, like their banking app and all this stuff that nobody's privy to. But because the police officer was like, hey, you should maybe delete some things off your phone before you turn this over, they got to completely dismiss a charge that she had against him. So I think in the era of like digital evidence, I think it's going to be harder to make things like really stick. But yeah, he's trying to wiggle free. But when he has like 87 people that have come out against him, and 3 are within the statute of limitations in New York. I think once they're finished with him on the East Coast, somebody's going to pop up on the West Coast, like, now that you're done over here, and we can bring you back to Hollywood and really, really heat things up. So I think the East Coast part is like that trial, because he's hiding out in Connecticut. He's on house arrest in Connecticut. And then he has to be brought into New York. I think he's got like a little ankle bracelet or something. He can't leave his house. But it's like his compound in Connecticut. Like how bad can, and it's the fall. Like I'm sure people are bringing him lattes and his leaves are changing colors and all that stuff. Like I don't think his house arrest is so bad. But his bond is like $1 million or something. Like, yeah, well, totally. And it's like your bond's only like 10%. So like he's got $100,000 to throw down on this. Like that's fine. $100,000 is a small price to pay to be able to sit at your compound in Connecticut and not actually have to be in jail with, like
what's his name?
Who bought their jail? Pablo Escobar? Pablo Escobar made his own jail? I didn't know that. That's really smart though. Like if you're a criminal and you're making a lot of money, why don't you this is my jail? I built it myself. Yeah. Yeah, it's like the federal, like the women's federal prison, like the one that Martha Stewart went to. It's called Camp Cupcake because it's like really, it's like really posh. Yeah, it's a federal prison, so it's like a nice one, and then like the ladies like decorated, I guess, because they're all like judges or Martha Stewarts or like whatever that goes to this federal prison. So they spruced the joint up, you know, they made it happen. But that would be smart. Like Harvey Weinstein's got the money. He can make himself his own jail if he tried hard enough.
He should.
Like,
I mean, he shouldn't.
In his shoes. Yeah, I don't think he's going to go to jail for that long, though. Like, it's incredibly hard to get anybody charged, tried, let alone convicted of sex crimes. Like, I think he'll be, and they're not considered violent crime. So, like, you can traffic, in California, you can traffic minor children, and it's not considered a violent crime. I don't know how they've arrived at this. Is it in Texas?
Yeah, it's kind of a
Yeah.
Under 19. So that's good. Yeah.
Oh, they raised the age. They've raised the bar.
Yeah, 18 is still considered minor.
Oh,
In
wow.
Scotland,
In Scotland is only 16? Then you're on your own? Oh, gosh. That seems rough. That seems like a law just ripe for abusing.
yeah, for that side of things, but as a 16-year-old girl.
Like, I'm free. I can do what I want. That's really convoluted. But it's true. It's 100% true. Like, the whole thing is not quite right. Like, once you start, like, reading the laws and, like, what the threshold is to be considered, like, a violation of whatever, you're like, that's a lot. Like, that seems like it's a lot. And then you have to have physical evidence for all this stuff. Like, that's freaking hard, man.
Yeah.
Like, the people that managed to get it done are, like, went through hell and back to try to get their person put away. But I do think Hart is headed to jail. I think they're going to finally stick it. But somewhere between New York, California, perhaps Miami, depending, like, I think somebody will figure it out and how to make the charges stick, and there'll be like some sort of prosecutor that will like just whatever crack is available to go down. I think that's what they're gonna do, because I can't, like, out of this list of 87 people, and that's just the people that publicly come out against Harvey Weinstein, like 3 of them have an active like running case against him that's within their statute of limitations, and that's just in New York. He spent most of his time in LA, so I think the people that really, 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 who was out there? Just people. We might as well.
No, they're gone.
Like, we have pizza and wings.
I don't think we do have pizza.
Oh, we eat it all?
There's maybe like 2 slices.
We can invite one person then. we can invite one person. One person's coming. Yeah. So we're like spirited with, you know, food. We were obviously all ravenous because we ate wings, pizza, cinnamon knots. Yeah, we murdered the chips. The chips got murdered. Okay, so phone is still buzzing. I don't know. Anyway, so that's my hypothesis, is that Harvey's actually going to go to jail. And I think somebody's going to come up behind him too. Like, I'm surprised Louis C.K. is wiggled free, because he's back to work. His show's back on. But he's like a really independent person. But hello! Our one person arrived. There's just enough pizza for you. Lock the door. Yay, Dad, I'm glad you came in. We're lock the door. Nobody else is allowed in now because we've eaten all the food. That works out perfect. Yeah.
So I know back in the day, I really know for Congress.
Yeah.
After
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, there was a decrease in number of harassment. Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't think so. I think we're in such a frenzy because like when she did it, like there wasn't any sort of like there wasn't any gas in that vehicle basically, and she, from what because that wasn't like really in my waking lifetime. From what I've seen on it looking back is that she didn't even really want, like she wanted to go public with the story, but she didn't want to physically be involved in that accusation, and they really had to like rally her and be like, come on, let's do this thing. And then once she got there, she was like, this is not what I don't like it, basically. So I think that kind of like people feeling intimidated already because they already don't want to talk about sex crimes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then when you add that layer of the publicness to it and like what the kinds of things that people ask when you go and accuse somebody is like really, really gnarly. I did a show about Terry Crews appearing before like a Senate committee, and the things that they asked him were like horrible, and that's Terry Crews. So that's like a big, strong guy that everybody loves. Like, who doesn't love Terry Crews? Like, come on. Who doesn't love them an Old Spice man? But when you're like a nobody person or somebody that has some sort of reputation, like, of course they're going to throw the book at you. So I think, like, the Anita Hill situation, like, I think it was more of that. It's like, people got to see what these people are going to ask you, and with no sort of like support or energy behind it, it sucked for everybody. Like, and that's the thing too, is like, that kind of happens a lot with this sort of thing. It's like, if say somebody is lying, either way, it's screwed up because the person that's lying, like, that's messed up, and the person getting accused, that's messed up too. And then conversely, like, if it is true, like, oh gosh, this terrible thing actually really happened, like, in real life, that's awful. Like, it's a lose-lose situation, like, period. So I think I try not to do any shows about like people that I don't know, but I think like Christine Ford had so much support around her. Like, I don't think people are going to stop doing it. There's been a few girls that have went to jail recently for false accusations, like completely unrelated, but there's been a few girls lately that accused other people in their colleges of raping them. And then they, like, after like all these long trials, they're like, just kidding. And they've gotten sentenced to like a year in jail. So I think the consequences for, I don't want to say accusations, but like being out here playing games has definitely increased, because I think back then, if you accused somebody and it didn't, especially if it wasn't like a public thing, nothing would happen to you. Like, that person would just have to deal with it basically. And they'd be like, if like the best case scenario, like they had to pay your legal bills of like, because, you know, they, like a civil case, lose your case. Like, that's just how it works. But for a criminal thing, nowadays, like, the people are going to jail for false accusations. So I think now, like, a lot of people want to just have like the recognition from it, like they stood up and told their story basically. Like, they don't necessarily care what the outcome is. Like, there's some people that do really, really want justice, like that person needs to go to jail or they need to go do whatever, like whatever their like vision of justice is. But I think there's going to be more people that come forward, but hopefully they're more concrete about it, because when you don't have, because I've seen this happen. Like I was working on a movie that I was like doing like pre-production for, and this woman was older, and she was like, her and her husband were in a family deal for their agency, and then once they got divorced, her agency gave her the boot, and like didn't even call her and be like, hey, so now that you're not on your family deal, like they didn't even give her like the entourage treatment, like when drama got booted from the agency because what's his face did. Like they didn't even get, like she didn't even get that conversation. It was just like lights out basically. And then apparently they said some like really terrible things to her, and she's like, I want to come forward with my story, and I'm like, well, like, what's your goal here? Like, do you want to go, like, do you want to sue for like retaliation or something like that, or like breach of contract? Like, what is your goal with this? And she's like, oh, I just want other people to know. I'm like, man, that's a large price to pay for all of that media and the circus is going to be and the questions you're going to get asked. Like, that's a big price to pay just to get your story heard. So I think more people are going to have more of a plan, if anything, of like, well, if I'm going to stand up and say this, I have to be getting something out of it. Whatever that fill in the blank something is, they have to be working towards some sort of a goal. Whether that's to sue them civilly, which I don't think does much, go after them criminally. There has to be some sort of like restitution happening, whether it be whatever it is, like whatever their definition of that is, but just be like, just getting up in front of a bunch of people and be like, I'm going to say this, like, I don't think people are going to do that. I think they're going to be like, well, I should have a goal. But it's a good question, though. I mean, we'll just have to find out and see if people, like, chill out on it or they keep going. My vote is that they're going to keep going, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Especially as it pertains to, like, a person of note. But at the same time, though, like, if you're going to go after somebody for something, you have to get a lawyer to take your case. And if that person's not known and the lawyer's not going to get, like, some credibility and, like, news story off of it, they're not going to take the case. Like, there's nothing to be had. There's nothing to be had. And most people, if they're going after somebody criminally, they get, like, a public defender, because who's going to go out and pay a lawyer, like, a ton of money to represent you when the state's picked up the case if they're pursuing it? So I think it's kind of a toss-up. It could happen. But it's a good thing to watch and see if these things, because that graph that I just read, like, it's going up and up and up, and then now it's kind of leveling off. But we'll see. Who knows? Anybody else have any questions?
I want to ask you about the terminology change that some victims don't want to call it rape, but they want to call it sexual intercourse without consent.
I didn't know that.
That's really strange. The only thing that I can think of is that to stop calling it rape is because it's kind of become like a dirty word. Not that it was ever a clean word to begin with. Like, I'm always like of the school of like a rose by any other name is a rose. Like, I don't understand this like changing of the words all the time. But it might be a legal thing, because like when I was in Germany covering the sex attacks in Cologne, German law didn't have a capacity for anything outside of like forced penetration, and it had to be male to female. Like, there wasn't anything else. They eventually like got the German parliament together, and they changed the laws to like make a capacity definition for molest, sexual assault, rape, like the whole thing. But it wasn't, when it happened, it technically wasn't illegal because they didn't have any laws against it. But when the story finally broke, because the government had suppressed it, when it broke and then it kind of started migrating outside of Europe, there was a memo that leaked from Merkel's office to the mayor of Cologne to tell her, because it was the mayor of Cologne's lady, to tell her how to police to go back and expunge the word rape from any of the police reports. They were told to take it out. So I don't know. I think it might be a legal thing. If anybody's like, dude, that would be, I don't see any other reason to do it. But
They are really untrue here because, if you took medication for depression, that carries a stigma. Today it doesn't. So some of the victims in this article don't want the stigma being.
and you're going to get the stigma regardless of what you call it. Like, I think we're reaching for the stars here, really. Like, Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, maybe make it a little bit more digestible. I don't know. I don't know. We're kind of living in an era that's like gay victimhood. So it seems like people would want the more like severe situation. But if they want to change the terminology, I mean, they could. I don't know that it's going to help their case in any way, but. Well, yeah, like admitting. They need a gray area term. Is that? Yeah, I interviewed a lady in Sweden who was from Norway, but she practiced law in Germany. She's kind of like a little vagabond. But she said when she was studying for her bar in Germany that she passed out like at a party. She was so tired. Hello, thanks for coming in. That she passed out because she was just so tired from studying. And this guy raped her, and she didn't even know until she stood up. And she was like, oh no. And she like went to the police station, and like she had her dad pick her up, and they were like, how is this even possible? Like they didn't believe her that she could sleep through it. So I mean, maybe in a situation like that, you'd be like, well, I get what you're saying, but this is like the reality of the situation. And stuff like, and she was like a really like hardcore chick, and she was like studying for the bar, so like she knew like what to do. Like she like had her terminology down, but I guess somebody who was like really, really traumatized and didn't have that like legal training, I guess you could say, that they would be like, blah blah this penal code and blah 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 blah. Like it's not a thing. But that seems strange to me. But if people want to call it force without consent instead of rape, I guess that's their journey. I guess that's their thing. I don't think I would tell people to say that, but if that's what makes them more comfortable with their situation, whatever. But that's basically that. We're at 32 minutes. Oh, wow. So, the end. So, thanks for coming by. Yay! Yay, 50th episode. I'm going to finish mine. See you later, guys.